Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review Umami Grove VR, a game released on the Steam Store and the MetaQuest Store April 24th, 2025. It normally retails for $20. I received a free Steam key through the Steam Creator Connect program to review this game, and I played it on both the MetaQuest 3 and the HP Reverb G2. One of my main motivations for doing a full review for this game is that I saw the MetaQuest Store only had 2 reviews for this game. How is that possible? I don't get it. This is a very cozy, chill cooking adventure game that has a lovely world to explore and get to know. It isn't perfect. There are some flaws here, but overall I enjoyed it and I do recommend this game, and I hope more people decide to support this developer and buy the game. Now, it took me about 9 hours to 100% the game. That includes collecting all the golden acorns and collecting all the recipes, as well as actually cooking most of the recipes. You can beat the game in 3 to 4 hours if you're just trying to get to the end credits, but I think most people trying to do most of the game's content will take at least 5 to 6 hours. There is a lot of cooking in this game, but most of it is actually optional. You can do side quests or mini games in order to get the minimum number of golden acorns, which is usually 5, in order to get to the next area. There's 5 different zones to explore. 4 zones are represented by the seasons: summer, winter, fall, and spring. And the last zone is basically just a prolonged boss fight where you repeat some of the earlier challenges. So let's talk about Umami Grove and why I recommend it and why maybe it wasn't well received. First of all, Umami Grove is running on the Unity engine, and it's not the most optimized game. On my RTX 5090, I was getting a steady 90 frames per second. However, on my RTX 3080, I was getting reprojection. You do have full locomotion along with smooth and snap turning available. The default walking speed was a bit too slow, but you can run, and that does improve things. You can play this game comfortably seated for the most part, but you are too low to the ground by default unless you start standing. There's no way to fix that within the game settings. You do have to use third-party software like OVR to fix it. The inventory system here is also a bit cumbersome. It's basically just a wall of bubbles in front of you where you can put the ingredients that you find along the way. Now, the ingredients are easy to store because you can just put it behind your back, but once you need to get them out is when it becomes tricky. The crouching is also a bit odd because there is no toggle. You have to keep the joystick pressed down in order to keep staying crouched, which if you have to pick up several ingredients from near the ground, it can be a bit cumbersome as well. The good news is that I did not experience any serious issues or bugs. The game did have an issue when trying to climb ice walls with the ice picks, but that issue was fixed with an update. I will say that there is quite a bit of jank in this game. Several of the interactions are just clunky and not as smooth and polished as they would need to be for this cozy game. For example, there's a mini game where you have to use a bow and arrow to hit targets. However, notching the arrow on the bow usually took more than one attempt because it just wasn't as smooth as it should be. There's also a gameplay element where you're throwing fruit bombs, but the throwing mechanic is just a little off, and it's hard to tell how far you're gonna throw it because it seems to be very inconsistent. There's also a jump mechanic where you have to jump over certain ledges in order to get to some areas that you otherwise cannot get to. However, the jumping mechanic is very inconsistent and frustrating, and this lack of polish is really what holds back this game, unfortunately. Now, there are several gameplay elements to this experience. It is an adventure game first, but it obviously has a big cooking emphasis at its core with its physics system as well. So a lot of the game is just finding the different ingredients needed for the cooking recipes, unlocking new cooking recipes, and then using the physics system in order to cook the recipes. Now, the cooking system here is simplified for you, so the water is already boiling and the pan is already heated up for you. Now, I think this is a miss on the part of the developer because they focus so much on the physics, but then a lot of the stuff is already done for you. I think it would have been cool to set up the fire and then put the water in the pot and see it boil before you start your cooking recipe, and maybe put some oil or butter into the pan and then turn the stove top on. I think those extra steps would have gone a long way into increasing the immersion for the game. And at the end of the day, the cooking here is just a little little bit too simple. You're either just slicing in half or slicing into little pieces and then either putting them in the boiling pot or into the frying pan with the predetermined number of ingredients for the recipe. There just needed to be a little bit more variety, a little bit more steps, maybe a little bit different cooking methods in order to make it a lot more fun. The fish recipes were really the only one that varied it even a little bit. The rest of the game is just meeting the different cast of characters. Most of them are voiced, but they speak gibberish, and they'll have you doing different activities, and sometimes part of the challenge is figuring out what exactly they want. Or you'll be doing a mini game. Sometimes the mini game is as easy as just following the character, and they might have you go through an obstacle course or doing some platforming. There is a lot of climbing in this game, both normal climbing but also climbing with ice picks. There's a snowboarding race, there's archery, and there's some combat sections as well. There's a drumming memory game where you just have to hit the notes that were played, and there's some snowball fights and sections where you have to throw fruit bombs at enemies. So there are lots of activities in the game, but most of them are very simple. Honestly, a lot of the difficulty here is the fact that you have one of the worst maps in gaming. The map here wasn't very useful, so a lot of the time you're just walking around trying to find an ingredient to finish off your recipe, or trying to find that NPC that'll give you a golden acorn. Despite all my criticisms though, this was a cozy experience for VR that mostly works. Each season was well represented, each level was a joy to explore. The worlds are mostly very colorful and bright, but even when they were not, they were very interesting to explore, especially with all the interesting characters to meet and all the different activities to do. This is just one of those VR gaming experiences that could have been great with more polish. The game also has a good musical soundtrack that goes well with the cozy experience. While none of the activities have a lot of depth to them, there's enough character here to keep you engaged throughout the whole journey, and the journey is one worth taking in VR. There's not a whole lot of cozy games like this that have this much content to them. That is mostly good. Not great, but still good enough. Anyways, if I have to rate this game, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. It is a joy to explore this world, and I do recommend it. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. This has been my full review after 100% for Umami Grove. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
Good. Oh. Ha ha. Ho 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 ho.